This is a 2007 Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG, and it's ridiculous. Even though this car is almost 20 years old, its numbers are still amazing. Twin-turbo V12 with more than 600 horsepower, almost 750 pound-feet of torque, and this car had a sticker price of almost $200,000 back then. It's totally crazy. And today I'm going to review this SL65 AMG and show you all of its quirks and features. Before I get started, big news, this SL65 AMG is currently for sale and it's being auctioned live on Cars and Bids. Not only that, it's finished in a cool color combination and it belongs to my friend Kenan, a fellow Cars and Bids contributor who recently took it in for some excellent servicing. And you can buy it on Cars and Bids. So once you finish watching this video, click the link in the description below to visit the live auction for this SL65 where you can bid on it and buy it only on Cars and Bids. All right, time for the quirks and features of the SL65 AMG. It's a serious car, and let's start with the basics. So the SL has always been kind of a flagship model in the Mercedes-Benz lineup. Sort of in terms of design and style and performance, has always been positioned at or near the very top. And the SL65 is the flagship of the flagship. It was introduced for the very first time on this body style of Mercedes-Benz SL. This is called the R230 SL, and it came out in 2003. The SL65 came out in 2006, and it was crazy. So for a little context about where it sat in the lineup, in the States, our entry-level SL was the SL500, which had a 300 horsepower V8. That's pretty good, but if you wanted more, you could step up to the SL600, which had a V12 and about 490 horsepower. That's also pretty good. But if you wanted even more performance, you could go to the SL55 AMG, which had a supercharged V8, also 490 horsepower, but a little more performance and handling characteristics compared to the SL600 for more driving enjoyment. In case that still didn't do it for you, there was the SL65, this car, which has a twin-turbo V12, 604 horsepower, and 738 pound-feet of torque. Absolutely monster numbers then, and still monster numbers today. Now, this engine also went into a few other kind of ultimate Mercedes-Benz models, including the S65 AMG, which is this powertrain in an S-Class sedan. There was the CL65 AMG, which was kind of a two-door big luxury coupe with the crazy powertrain. And there were other Mercedes-Benz models, but probably the most famous, impressive car ever to carry this engine, the Pagani Huayra, the famous Italian supercar. Under its crazy sculpted hood, there's a Mercedes-Benz SL65 V12, same engine from the Pagani, which is a pretty cool detail. And as you might imagine, the power didn't come cheap. A regular SL500 back in this car's day had a starting price of around $95,000, which is roughly 150 grand in today's money. This car had a starting price of $180,000 back then, and this one's sticker price is a shade under 200 grand with options. Again, this is in 2007 dollars. It's over $300,000 in today's money to get into this car. It was a serious thing. But anyway, onto the quirks and features, and since we're talking powertrain, let's take a look at the engine. You can see it is absolutely massive, this giant engine, which even in the relatively large engine bay in an SL designed for V8s and V12s, it still looks absolutely huge. This is a big boy, as you can see. Now, you can also see the plaque mounted on the engine that gives the name of the person who handcrafted this powertrain at AMG. This is kind of an AMG hallmark for its engines, and it's mounted on this one. Of course. Now, interestingly, on the outside of this car, there's not much to distinguish the SL65 from the other lesser SL models, but there are a few clear touches that make it very obvious if you know where to look. The clearest is obviously on the side. You can see the badge says V12 bi-turbo, referring of course to its bi-turbo V12, but obviously anybody can just add a badge. Another upgrade is the wheels. These wheels were distinctive to the SL65 and the other 65 cars. The S65 had the same wheels when it first came out, and so did the CL65, and so this wheel design was only on the top of the top, and it really signified that you had the 65 and not any of the other, again, lesser models. But to me, the coolest little detail that distinguished the SL65 is these little gills in the front bumper. You can see them mounted here directly above the front wheel, and those stood out as being a special SL65 touch that the other SL models didn't have. And again, that gave you just a little bit of an indication that this was something a little bit more special. Beyond that, this car just looked like a regular R230 Mercedes-Benz SL, which honestly was a pretty good thing. This was a nice, attractive car. The design lasted for almost a decade, and it looked good the whole time. It looked sporty, but luxurious, stylish, and cool. It had a lot going for it. But to me, I always loved the subtle upgrades for the 65 car, and especially these wheels. They're actually kind of opinion splitting. Some people don't like the kind of dark gray and silver. Some people don't like the rivets around the edge, but I've always loved them because I know what they signify. You see those wheels? You're looking at the boss. But anyway, next we move inside, where there's a surprising number of interesting and weird quirks to this car. For a vehicle that's so serious and expensive and German engineered, there's some weird stuff. We begin on the door panel, where there's actually a cool storage pocket. You press this little silver panel to open it up, and it's not just the top part that opens, the side part also folds forward, so it opens up and out to give you full access to whatever it is that you have in the door panel, which is a pretty cool idea. In terms of unusual storage compartments, there's also one mounted on the front of the seats. You can see mounted right here, kind of in front of the seat bottom. You open up this panel, and there's a storage compartment in there. Seat-mounted storage compartment. Actually, it's a pretty cool idea, and I wish more cars had it. This one does. In this car, you also have storage mounted behind the seats. You can see in this area between kind of the seats and the rear of the car, you have like a shelf here where you open up these panels, one on each side, and you have storage compartments in there where you can put, well, stuff you're trying to store. It kind of looks like back seats behind the front seats in this car, but it isn't. This SL was never offered, at least here in North America, with back seats. It was only ever a two-seater with sort of these fake storage compartment looking things in back. The confusion about the back seats is enhanced further, though, because there are seat belts back here, but they're seat belts for your luggage. How's this for a quirk? You can see this little strap kind of in the rear area. Well, if you undo that strap from its storage location, that's where it is now, you can actually strap it into a little anchor point at the base of the seat, almost on the floor of the car, and then you have a seat belt that's going across this rear parcel shelf compartment. That's a seat belt for your luggage. It's a luggage strap that's intended to keep your luggage from rolling around when you're cruising in your SL. It's kind of an interesting thing. There's even a belt buckle down there, so when you want to release the strap, you press a button just like you would on a seat belt, and it releases the strap, and then you can put it away back in its regular storage location where it sits when you're not using it. Certainly an odd piece of equipment. Also odd in terms of equipment back here is the roll bar, which in this car is manually operated. It's electronic, it's power operated, but you can choose to put it up. In order to do that, you lift up this little panel, this flap in the center console, and there are two buttons here, one to put the roll bar up and one to put the roll bar down. If you choose to put the roll bar up, you can see it sort of swings up, power operated, and when it's up, when it's in place, it looks terrible. It just looks really stupid. It looks like your car has a basket handle. But of course, with the roll bar in place, you are potentially saving your life in a rollover collision because it will support the weight of the car, and so your head won't get crushed. So you have to decide When you're driving around in this car, you have to choose between style and death. That's the choice you make every day with the roll bar in an R230 SL. Now, also in this vicinity, obviously, is the roof, which is a power retractable folding hardtop, and the operation is rather unusual. That little flap that I showed you in the center console that you lift up to get the roll bar controls, that flap is your power convertible top controls. You lift it up to see the roll bar controls, but you can also push it back a little further, and then it activates the top control, and then it puts the roof down as you hold it in place, kind of pushing it back. As you can see, the roof goes down automatically. Again, power retractable hardtop, it all works pretty well. If you want the roof to go back up, in other words, the other direction, you push the center console flap the other way. So you push it kind of down and towards the roll bar controls, and then as you can see, the power convertible top does its thing and goes right back into place and fully automatically latches. You don't have to do anything like at the windshield with latching something. It's all done for you. Now, interestingly, in this car, you have power windows on the doors, and then you have a set of rear power windows as well for the non-existent rear passengers. The strange thing is you do not have separate controls for the rear power windows. You only have two window switches here, and the only way to roll up the rear windows is after you've already rolled up the front windows, you pull on the window switches again, and then the rear windows go up. And when you want to roll the windows down, they all go down at once. So it is not possible to have just the rear windows raised up, which is something that people sometimes do accidentally in other convertibles, and it always looks stupid. Well, they've prevented you from making that mistake in the SL. But anyway, beyond the top, let's move on to some other interesting quirks and features in here. Some weird controls, like for example, there is a spot where you can put the key in and twist it, like an ignition switch, like in a lot of other cars. Pretty simple, but there's also a button mounted on the top of the shift lever you can press to start or stop the engine. That's if you're feeling frisky. You get in the car, you can decide, put the key in or press the button. You got options for some reason. In the ceiling area, there's little buttons for reading lights. You can see a light and a book, pretty simple. But when you press that button, nothing seems to happen. That's because the button does not actually control the light that is mounted directly next to the button. Instead, the reading lights are mounted under the rearview mirror, and when you press the button, that's where the light turns on. In order to turn on the lights that are mounted next to the reading light button, you have to press this button instead in the center, and then they will turn on, which is kind of weird, but that's how they've done it. Also a little unusual, at the top of the dashboard, you can see there is a clock here. Nothing too weird about that. It gives you the time. But the strange thing is that the clock is also included in the display for the parking sensors. This isn't just a clock. When you get close to something with the car, these lines start to appear on this display, kind of showing closer and closer you're getting to give you a sense of how far you are from the object, which makes sense. It's just kind of strange to see it mixed in with the clock. Also kind of strange, you have a separate button in this car for the headlight washers. You can see over to the left of the steering wheel, your headlight controls here on this dial, and then there's a button you press to wash the headlights, to spray so that you can clean them off. In other Mercedes-Benz models, that's typically linked to the windshield washer fluid squirters, but in this car, it has its own separate operation, so you can do it whenever the mood strikes. Another interesting item in this car, on the seats, you can see there's a button down here that says pulse. If you press that, a massage function actually turns on to massage you. Now, modern day luxury cars have these very advanced massaging features. This was 20 years ago. This was a very early rudimentary vehicle massage, but it is some of the beginnings of a massage feature in cars. Here's another thing I love. On the door panel, you can see a button for heated seat and a button for the cooled ventilated seat. You press the heated seat and 2 red lights come on. You can choose between high and low. You press the ventilated seat and 3 blue lights come on. You can choose between high, medium, and low. So for some bizarre reason, you have an extra setting of ventilated seat. God knows why. Also interesting in this car, and kind of a surprise, in the center console, you can see there is a button to push to raise the ride height of the car. This has active body control and air suspension, and you can press it if you want to lift up the car. I'm not sure why anyone would want to do that on an SL65. You're taking it down a rough road, I suppose, but if you do want to do it, the possibility is there. Now, speaking of interesting controls, let's move on to the climate controls, which have a rather odd operation. You change the fan speed with this dial in the center, and then there are lights above the dial that correspond to the fan speed selection that you've made, which is kind of cool. I especially like, though, in the middle of the dials for the temperature, you can adjust where the air is coming out. You can see you can make it go high, low, center. Those are your adjustments, and you twist this dial to choose the airflow. But the cool thing here is this isn't just a dial. Instead, you can also push it. It's a button, and when you do that, it turns on automatic climate control, and then the car chooses where the air comes out. So that's how you can decide if you want auto or manual control of airflow with this sort of button dial combo. And if you want to change the temperature, of course, these silver dials on the outside of the temperature rings, those will let you select the temperature. It's all actually a little bit complicated, but by organizing it this way, it kind of cuts down on the number of buttons and switches you would normally find in climate controls, and it looks a little cleaner. Now, interestingly, directly above the climate controls, you have cup holders, and you can see they are these bizarre pop-out cup holders that look like they'd be too angled to hold a drink, but indeed it works because of the kind of structure behind the cup holder that pops out and sends the drink upright. You can see the driver and passenger cup holders are different. The passenger one actually sort of delivers itself towards the passenger, where the driver one can't do that. It would block your feet and your knees, so it comes straight out. The really weird thing is the placement of this cup holder. Obviously, it works well to hold your drink, but then it's right above your electronics. So if your drink starts to drip or sweat, it would drop right down on that and get everything sticky. Not really great placement, but at least the cup holders are there. Now, when you move above the cup holders in the center control stack, you can see the infotainment screen, which by today's standards, obviously nothing special. It's not a touch screen, obviously not particularly great or fast or incredible features, anything like that. It just sort of does what you'd expect from kind of a mid-2000s infotainment system, and it works fine. This car does also feature the phone dial number pad, like a lot of Mercedes-Benz models from this era. Mercedes-Benz held on to this for way too long in its vehicles, and you have your phone pad here. Now, the gauge cluster, same basic deal. You don't have some full screen. Instead, you just have a couple of little kind of black and white pixelated screens below the middle gauges. It actually does give you some decent information, like it can tell you the direction you're traveling, the street you're on, which is kind of surprising. It can also show you like what music you're listening to, which CD track, vehicle temperature, that kind of thing. Strangely, one of the displays also shows what gear you're in, which is weird because that's a default display for this screen that's always there, and it appears right next to the chosen gear display. You can see park and park are right by each other. The especially weird part here, though, is that when you shift gears, they don't change at the same rate. So you go into reverse and one changes before the other, which makes absolutely no sense, but that is in fact the situation here. Beyond that, the gauges in this car are pretty predictable, similar to what you find in other Mercedes-Benz models from this era, although the gauge cluster is one of the few places that it reminds you you're driving an SL65. It says V12 bi-turbo at the bottom. You don't have that basically anywhere else. On the floor mat, you can see it says V12, but it doesn't say bi-turbo. Those could be floor mats for just a regular SL600, and that's it. There's some AMG logos on the car, like in the seat backs. You can see it looks pretty nice, but SL65, this ultra special top-of-the-range model, it's not printed anywhere in this interior, and it doesn't remind you of it except the V12 bi-turbo on the gauge cluster. Kind of surprising. And finally, we move on to the cargo area, the trunk, which in this car is actually really interesting. You open up the trunk, it's power operated, and then as you just saw, the top, if it's down, also opens up in order to give you more access to the trunk and whatever you have in here. And then, strangely enough, there's a shelf. So there's like 3 layers of trunk. The trunk, and then the roof, and then this shelf. And you're thinking, what exactly is the purpose of the shelf? Well, it makes a little bit more sense when the roof is up. You put the roof up and then you open the trunk and you can see, well, now the shelf is there, kind of blocking the trunk again, but its purpose is that it shows you exactly how much luggage or cargo that you can put in the trunk and still get the roof down, because as long as the shelf is closed, then the roof can go down on top of the shelf. Now, if you want to put more stuff in the trunk than what you can fit under the shelf, that's totally fine, but you won't be able to put the roof down if that's the situation. And so when you're putting stuff in the trunk, you got to think through, does it all fit under the shelf? And if so, yes, then the roof can go down. If not, then I have to drive top up. Of course, in that circumstance, you might want to put it in the space behind the seats, which is why Mercedes-Benz went to such lengths to make this a decent luggage space, with those storage compartments that open up and with the bizarre luggage straps. They really wanted an extra storage compartment so you could have even more luggage space in case you wanted to put a bunch of stuff in this car and still ride with the roof down. And in case you're wondering, yes, the shelf does have to be latched in place in order for the roof to go down. That's how the car knows that there's enough space for the roof to drop. If you don't have the shelf latch, there's a warning message that comes on in the gauge cluster when you try to put the top down that says, hey, the shelf isn't latched, you can't put the roof down. You got to go back into the trunk and put it in place, and then you can drop the roof. And by the way, speaking of the roof, when the top is up, you can see it's not just a regular metal roof, it actually has glass, a glass panel over the top of it, so it's like a big sunroof. Even when the roof is up, you don't just have some metal covering you, it feels claustrophobic. You got a glass panel sunroof, which is pretty cool. And there's even a sunshade. As you can see, a sunshade closes over this panel in case you really do want to keep the sun out. You can. This is a pretty nifty top. It's a power convertible top and a sunroof, and it can be completely closed all in one. You start to understand how this car became so expensive. But obviously the primary reason it's so expensive is that powertrain, the way it feels and drives on the road. And so let's go drive it and see what it's like. All right, driving the SL65. It's been a little while since I've driven one of the twin-turbo AMG V12 cars, and I am reminded just why these cars are so cool. The power is just magnificent, absolutely magnificent. I'm a Mercedes-Benz guy. Get into this car, it just speaks to all of my sensibilities. Everything I love about Mercedes-Benz. The sort of solid feel of the car. It's not necessarily the most spry, the quickest handling, etc., but it just feels so solid and so strong on the road. And then the powertrain in this fashion of a true big engine Mercedes. It's not like peaky and frenetic. It just builds power and you're going. And it is just so monstrous without being like over the top, you know, egregious, loud. Oh. That is like a half throttle. And this car is just gone in a very subtle way. Like, again, it's not excessively gone. It just does it in this very calm and collected manner. And it's like, we're going to be going fast now. And it's just gone. This car is very Kennan, honestly. And I'm surprised he's getting rid of it, but understand kind of his reasons. But it is correct in a way. Man, I just love the feel of the power. Just Now, it's funny because I drove this engine in the Pagani Huayra, and I've since complained over the years that this engine is wrong for that car. And I still agree with that. Even driving this today, I'm reminded about that. This is an engine for like an Autobahn high speed. You need to make a big high speed pass on the Autobahn, you know, driving between cities, going really fast. And this powertrain can do that in spades. It's absolutely perfect for that. What I don't think it's perfect for is like a frenetic supercar that's mid-engined and crazy looking. This engine on paper has all the power and torque that you want, but in practice, it's not necessarily a slow builder, but it doesn't match the sort of outrageous extreme appearance and feel of that car. This engine is a luxury power engine. Now, one of the complaints that this car has earned over the years is that the powertrain sort of overshadows anything else, and this car is all engine. That's something that people say about it. And I don't entirely disagree. I actually think one of the interesting things about this car is that, you know, the CL and the S65 models, to me, are maybe more suited for what this powertrain is, this sort of big power Autobahn cruising kind of situation. This car, obviously a little bit sportier, two-seater car, convertible, not necessarily as much of a cruiser, but certainly more of a cruiser than, say, a 911 or something like that. And so it works. It's just, you're definitely not going to get like a high-performance handling experience out of this car. It really is, your drive is really focused on the engine, the powertrain. And the rest of the drive is nice. It's not necessarily over-the-top sporty, but it's nice. It feels good. It is relatively comfortable for a 20-year-old sort of sporty focused car. I think it's nice. And it's just, it feels solid. It just feels very planted. It feels very bank vault. Like, this car is not ever going to get skittish. It's not ever going to get away from you. It feels like it is really capable of just delivering a very solid experience. It helps you feel solid, honestly, while you're driving it. I sit here and I'm thinking, yeah, I can do whatever. Overall, I just have immense respect for this car. I really still think that this powertrain is a magical thing. I'm thrilled that it's in this car. I'm thrilled that I get to drive it. I just think this twin-turbo V12 is one of the coolest engines, and it's insane to me that Mercedes ever did it. And the fact that this engine is still going in cars 20 years later just proves how far ahead of its time it was in terms of, obviously, power and torque, where it's still a monster, but also refinement. Like, this engine is still refined and capable enough to continue to make an appearance in vehicles. I don't know if I would necessarily consider it to be an ultra-fun car, but it is a very fast way to go places in both style and like immense, easy, excellent speed. And that's pretty cool. And so that's the 2007 Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG. I love this car. It looks boss, and the powertrain is amazing. Its numbers were insane back then, 20 years ago when it came out, and they're still pretty crazy today. And you can get this SL65 on Cars and Bids. Anyway, now it's time to give this car a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 59 out of 100, which puts the SL65 here against some similar cars. It's near the bottom in this group, but this is a really impressive set that includes some really special cars, like the Mercedes SLS and SLR, the 997 Porsche 911 Turbo, and the Ferrari 612. The SL65 has some real benefits, but ultimately it doesn't earn huge marks in the weekend categories because it's not a sports car, and it doesn't score incredibly well in the daily categories because it's not particularly practical or dependable. It is, however, a very strong value considering its price point and its amazing powertrain, and I remain highly impressed with this car.